Hey guys, tonight we are doing something a little different. We're leaving behind every modern comfort, every GPS, every map, and every reassuring signpost. We're stepping back in time, way back, to the vast, breathtaking, and let's be honest, utterly terrifying expanse of the Pacific Ocean, as it was known centuries ago. You're not just learning about history tonight, you're about to live a piece of it. And a friendly warning, if you were actually thrust into this scenario, you with our modern sensibilities would probably, well, let's just say the odds of you making it to lunchtime are not great. But that's why we're here and safe in our beds, to experience the thrill without the peril. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Your support is what keeps this little channel afloat, much like the ancient navigational skills we're about to discuss. And while you're at it, I'm genuinely curious. Drop a comment down below and tell me what city you're listening from and what time it is for you right now. It always blows my mind to see this community spanning the globe, all winding down together. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. The first thing that hits you is the smell. It's not the sterile, salty air of a beach day. It's deep, ancient, and complex, a mix of wet hemp to seasoned wood, the faint sweetness of dried coconut, the pungent aroma of fermented breadfruit, and the undeniable scent of the open ocean, so a scent that is equal parts freedom and sheer, unadulterated mystery. You feel a gentle rolling motion beneath your feet, a rhythm that is already starting to feel like a second heartbeat. You open your eyes and the world has changed. You're standing on the deck of a Wahakolua, a massive, double-hulled voyaging canoe. It's not a crude raft, it's a masterpiece of engineering. The hulls, carved from massive logs, are seamlessly joined by a broad platform that serves as your world for the weeks to come. The deck is crowded, but orderly. Bundles of provisions wrapped in palm leaves, calabashes filled with fresh water, and stacks of pandanus sails waiting to catch the wind. The sound is a symphony of nature and craft, the creak of expertly tied lashings, the whisper of woven fibers, the slap of water against the hulls, and the wind, a constant presence, humming through the rigging. You look around at your crew. They're not what you might expect from Hollywood depictions. These men and women are sturdy, practical, their skin weathered by sun and sea, their eyes possessing a calm, knowing depth. They move with a quiet efficiency, a familiarity with this floating world that you can only dream of. They are Polynesian, and they are the greatest navigators the world has ever known. And you, my friend, are their newest, greenest, and most bewildered apprentice. Your guide is a man named Kalani, his face a map of smile lines and sun squints. He doesn't carry a compass, a sextant, or a chart. He carries something far more powerful, a lifetime of knowledge passed down through generations, to the living library of the Pacific. He sees your wide-eyed look, the way you're white-knuckling the railing. He offers a grin. Looking for a map? He asks, his voice a low rumble like distant waves on a reef. You nod, perhaps a little too eagerly. He chuckles and sweeps his arm in a grand gesture across the sembilan-degree horizon of endless, empty blue. This is the only map you need. It is all right here. The sky, the sea, the waves, the birds, they are all talking. You just have to learn how to listen. This is the fundamental, mind-bending concept you have to grasp. Mainstream history often framed Polynesian expansion as accidental, just a bunch of folks drifting on currents until they accidentally bumped into an island. But that's a profound misunderstanding. This was intentional exploration on an epic scale. They weren't lost. They were searching. Their map wasn't drawn on parchment. It was etched into their minds through years of rigorous training, song, and story. They were wayfinders, not wanderers. They didn't follow a plotted line. They held a mental image of their destination and their position relative to it, constantly updating it with information from the natural world around them. And here's a wonderfully bizarre little fact to get you started. To help with this mental mapping, they used a conceptual tool modern anthropologists call a star compass. It wasn't a physical object. Instead, they mentally divided the horizon into sans-serif houses, each named for a star or constellation that rose or set in that specific direction. Your entire world, your entire sense of direction, now revolves around remembering that. For instance, the rising point of the star Arcturus is called Hoklua, Siua, and it marks a specific house on your mental compass. It's like having a GPS interface in your brain, but one made entirely of poetry and memory. Of course, historians and anthropologists are still fiercely debating the exact methods of how this knowledge was transferred across generations without any written language. Was it primarily through sacred chants, through intricate stick charts that represented wave patterns, or through sheer brutal hands-on apprenticeship on the open ocean? The truth is, it was likely a combination of all three, a holistic system of learning that we in our digital age can scarcely comprehend. For now, though, your lesson is simpler. Kalani points to the mast. Your first task, he says, watch the way the wind plays with the feathers tied there. It will tell you a story. Listen to it. You squint at the feathers, dancing in the breeze. This, you realize, is going to be a very long trip. The sun finally dips below the horizon, and the world doesn't so much go dark as it transforms. Out here, with no city lights for thousands of miles, the sky doesn't get dark. It gets deep. It's a vast, velvety black dome that feels impossibly close, and it begins to populate itself, one pinprick of light at a time, until it's utterly, overwhelmingly crowded with stars. You've never seen so many. The familiar constellations you might know from backyard stargazing are there, but they're almost lost in the brilliant, chaotic splash of the Milky Way, a shimmering river of dust and light arching directly overhead. It's humbling, it's terrifying, and for your purposes, it's about to become your primary roadmap. Kalani settles beside you on the deck, following your gaze upward. They are our ancestors, he says softly, his voice almost lost in the gentle creak of the canoe. They are also our guides. They are constant. They rise and set in the same houses, season after season, generation after generation. They are the most reliable friends you will have out here. This is the bedrock of Polynesian navigation. While we might use the North Star as a fixed point, Polynesian navigators use the rising and setting points of key stars along the horizon. Imagine a giant, invisible compass rose painted on the edge of the ocean. Each direction, north, south, east, west, and every point in between, is marked not by a printed word, but by the specific spot where a certain star is born from the sea at dusk, or returns to it at dawn. He points to a bright, familiar cluster. You know that one? You nod. Orion, the hunter. To us, he is more than a hunter, Kalani says. We call him Kahihai Ona Keiki, the cat's cradle of the children. See his belt? Those 3 stars? When they are straight up and down in the sky, like a tree trunk, that tells us it is the right season to begin long voyages. This is the mainstream historical knowledge, the use of celestial navigation. But it wasn't just about recognizing constellations. It was about a deep, intimate understanding of their precise paths. A navigator knew that if he kept the rising point of the star Sirius directly off the stern of the canoe, he was heading a very specific, reliable course. If Antares was setting directly ahead, he was on another. The entire canoe was essentially sailing under a slowly rotating celestial dome, and the navigator was at the center, reading his position from it. Now for the wonderfully odd cold knowledge detail. The Polynesians didn't just use the bright, obvious stars. They also used dark clouds, or nebulae, within the Milky Way. These are the patches that look like empty black holes in the bright stardust. To them, these weren't voids, they were constellations in their own right. They saw them as great animals or canoes. Kalani points to a particularly dark patch near the Southern Cross. See the great shark there? Kamakau Nui o Maui. His tail points the way. The stars are the bright lights, but the dark spaces tell their own stories. You squint, and slowly, the shapeless void begins to resolve in your mind's eye into the distinct looming form of a shark. It's a perceptual shift, like learning a new language. Of course, scholars are still debating the exact identities and names of many of these dark cloud constellations. The knowledge was highly sacred and often guarded by specific navigator families, so different islands and different lineages might have had slightly different interpretations of the same dark patch. Was that one a shark, or an eel, a turtle, or a canoe? The debate continues, a quiet academic mystery swirling around these pockets of nothingness in the sky. For now, your task is simpler. Kalani has you pick a bright star just above the horizon. Watch it, he instructs. Do not take your eyes off it. The canoe will move, the waves will lift you up and down, but you must learn to feel the difference between our movement and the star's movement. You focus until your eyes water, trying to steady the star against the pitch and roll of the sea. It's maddeningly difficult. Just as you think you've got it, a particularly large wave lifts the canoe, and for a dizzying second, you feel like you're falling into the sky itself. Kalani just laughs softly. Good, you are feeling it. The disorientation is the first lesson. Now listen, he tilts his head. Beyond the wind, you hear it. The gentle, rhythmic slap of water against the hull. The stars give us our direction, he whispers. But the waves will soon start to tell us what lies ahead. The star drill continues until your head swims and your eyes feel dry and gritty. Just when you think you can't focus on one more celestial point, Kalani places a hand on your shoulder. Enough for now, he says. The sky will always be there. Now, it is time to listen to the ocean's voice. You blink, reluctantly pulling your gaze from the heavens, and for the first time, you truly hear the water around you. It's not a single sound, but a complex symphony. There's the soft, constant hiss of the hulls slicing through the sea, the occasional slap of a smaller wave against the prow, and the deep, resonant gurgle as water flows between the two hulls. Underneath it all is a low, powerful hum, the bass note of the vast Pacific itself. Kalani motions for you to lie down on the woven mat decking. Press your ear here, he instructs. You do, and the world changes. The sounds are no longer just around you. They are in you. The vibrations travel through the seasoned wood, up through the mat, and into your bones. You can feel the texture of the sea through the hull. A smooth, rolling vibration means long, steady swells, the deep ocean highways they used for long-distance travel. A sharper, choppier sensation might indicate a change in current, or a distant weather system. Your body is your instrument, Kalani murmurs, his own ear pressed to the deck a few feet away. The ocean is never silent. It is always speaking. It tells us of lands we cannot see. This is the mainstream historical insight. Polynesian navigators were master oceanographers. They understood that islands disrupted the great ocean swells, creating recognizable patterns of refraction and reflection. They could feel these patterns in the roll of the canoe and see them in the behavior of the water. A skilled navigator could detect the rebound waves from an island, a phenomenon known as teiko, long before the island itself was visible over the horizon. They weren't just sailing, they were reading a topographic map written in water. Now for the fantastically cool, weird detail. They didn't just feel the waves, they tasted o'er them. Kalani hands you a long, hollow reed. Dip this deep, bring up water from far below the surface, he says. You do, and he has you taste a tiny sip. It's shockingly cold and salty. Then he has you taste water from the surface. It's warmer, and to your surprise, slightly less salty. The water from the deep ocean is different from the water that runs off the mountains of an island, he explains. The fresh water from the rivers creates a lens of slightly less salty water that can spill far out to sea. Your tongue can sometimes find the island before your eyes can. You never thought you'd be tasting the ocean for navigational clues, but here you are, a connoisseur of Pacific brine. Naturally, historians and oceanographers are still debating the practical efficacy and widespread use of this taste test efficacy method. Was it a common technique, or a last resort trick used by a few specialists? The salinity gradients around tropical islands are real and measurable with modern instruments, but whether a human palate could reliably detect them amidst the varying tastes of the open ocean is a question that remains gently argued over in academic papers. For you, the lesson is more about intention. It teaches you to engage every single sense. Nothing is irrelevant. The taste of the water, the smell of the wind, the feel of the spray on your skin. It's all data. Kalani suddenly sits upright, a faint smile on his face. Do you feel it? He asks. You concentrate, your cheek still pressed against the deck. You feel the familiar rise and fall. There, he says. A new rhythm. A smaller, quicker pulse underneath the big swells. Like a heartbeat within a heartbeat. You strain, and then you feel it, a faint, interwoven pattern of vibration. A subtle echo riding the power of the deep water waves. That is the voice of an island, Kalani says, his eyes closed in concentration. It is still many days away, but it is calling. It is telling us we are on the right path. He opens his eyes and looks at you. But to be sure, we will ask the birds tomorrow. They are the gossips of the ocean. They always know the latest news. Dawn breaks not with a silent, gradual light, but with a cacophony of squawks and cries. You are jolted from a light sleep by the sound of wings. Dozens, maybe hundreds of them swooping and diving around the canoe. The sky is filled with birds of all sizes, from small, darting terns to majestic, gliding albatrosses with wingspans that seem to blot out the sun. It feels chaotic, like feathered anarchy. But as you watch Kalani, you see he isn't overwhelmed. He's studying them with the focused intensity of a stock trader reading a ticker tape. He points to a group of small white terns, zipping erratically over the waves. They are the gossips, he says with a chuckle. They never go far from home. They are telling us there is land nearby, even if we cannot see it yet. They fish these waters, but they must return to their nests on shore every night. This is the mainstream historical knowledge, the use of bird behavior as a vital navigational tool. Polynesian navigators had an encyclopedic knowledge of ornithology. They knew the maximum range of different species. Some birds, like the booby or the tern, are coastal birds. Spotting them meant land was within a certain radius, perhaps woodgy, maybe par miles. Others, like the albatross or the frigate bird, that are deep water pelagic birds that can travel immense distances, but still need to return to land to breed. Their flight patterns told a story. A bird flying with purpose in a straight line, especially in the morning or evening, was likely heading directly to or from its roost. A bird circling aimlessly was probably just fishing in open water. Now for the wonderfully specific and odd fact. They didn't just watch the birds. They analyzed their droppings. Kalani points to a dark stain on the deck near the mast. See that? From a frigate bird, the ones that eat fish from the surface near land have droppings that are, chalkier, whiter. The ones that have been eating far out at sea On deep water fish and squid, their droppings are darker, more oily. He sees your incredulous look and laughs. It is not the most pleasant part of the job, but it is a clue. Everything is a clue. The color of the guano, the size of the fish in their beaks, even how full their crops look. You make a mental note to watch your step on deck from now on. Of course, scholars are still debating the precise nuances of this avian intelligence network. How much of this knowledge was standardized across the Pacific, and how much was hyper-local, known only to navigators from specific island chains who were familiar with their own native bird populations? Could a navigator from Tahiti truly accurately interpret the flight patterns of a bird species unique to Hawaii that he'd never seen before? It's a debate that hinges on the extent of inter-archipelago communication and knowledge sharing, a topic that still has its mysteries. Your practical lesson begins. Kalani has you focus on a single bird, a large brown booby. Watch him. See how he flies out? He is searching. Now watch. There. The bird suddenly tucks its wings and plunges headfirst into the water, emerging a moment later with a small silvery fish wriggling in its beak. It then turns and flies, not back out to sea, but in a determined straight line off the port bow. He is going home to feed his chicks, Kalani states confidently. That direction. That is the way we will look for land. He then points to a magnificent frigate bird, soaring high above with a distinctive forked tail. That one. He is a thief and a bully. He does not dive for fish. He harasses the boobies until they drop their catch, and then he steals it midair. He is lazy, but he is also a strong flyer. If you see him in the evening, he will always fly directly to land. He is a very reliable signpost. As the day wears on, you start to see the patterns. It's no longer a chaotic mess of birds. It's a structured commuter system. You begin to distinguish the short-hop commuters from the long-haul travelers. Your neck aches from looking up, but you feel a thrill of understanding. You are reading the sky. Kalani nods in approval. Good. You are starting to see. The birds give us the short-range news. But for the bigger picture, he gestures upwards to the high, wispy clouds beginning to gather on the horizon. We must now learn to read the messages the islands send us on the wind. The clouds are the true map of the unseen. Kalani's gaze is no longer on the water or the birds, but fixed on the vast, empty expanse of sky ahead. The few wispy clouds from earlier have begun to organize themselves, clustering on the horizon like distant, silent mountains. Now, he says, his voice dropping into a tone of deep reverence, we learn the most subtle of the arts. We learn to read the maps the islands themselves paint upon the sky. You follow his gaze, but all you see are clouds, fluffy, shapeless, and utterly ordinary clouds. They look exactly like the clouds you'd see on a summer day back home, promising nothing more than a possible afternoon shower. You feel a flicker of doubt. How can those possibly be a map? An island is not just land in the water. Kalani begins sensing your skepticism. It is a mountain that disrupts everything. The wind, the waves, and most of all, the sky. The warm, moist air rising from its forests and mountains must go somewhere. As it rises, it cools, and the water vapor inside condenses. He points to a particularly large, puffy cloud sitting alone on the horizon. It looks stationary, while other smaller clouds drift lazily past it. See that one? It looks like it is anchored. That is because it is. Beneath it, hidden by the curve of the world, is an island. The island's heat is feeding it, making it grow, pinning it in place like a flag. This is the mainstream historical kernel. The understanding that stationary or persistently forming clouds often mark the location of islands, a concept now known in meteorology as the forward cloud capacity. If a glow by a evil this edified a cloud. It was about interpreting its very texture and character. An island with high volcanic peaks will tear the wind, Kilani explains, his eyes scanning the heavens. The wind is forced to rush up and over the summit. This can comb the clouds into long lentil shapes, what your scientists call lenticular clouds. They look like giant, silent UFOs hovering over the island. And see the clouds that have dark, flat bottoms and fuzzy, soft tops? You nod, spotting a few. Those are growing. They are full of the island's breath. They may bring rain to the slopes below. Their darkness is the shadow of the forest within them. He then teaches you about the most hopeful sign, the old rainbow cloud, or iridescence sometimes seen at the edges of these cloud caps. When the sun hits the cloud just right, and you see colors, soft pinks, greens, blues like a seashell, that is the island smiling at us. It is a sign of very tiny water droplets, a sure sign of stable rising air. You find yourself staring, your perception shifting. The sky is no longer a passive canvas, it's a dynamic, interactive display, a silent broadcast of information from over the horizon. You're not just looking at clouds, you're reading them. Of course, modern climatologists and historians are still debating the limits of this knowledge. They argue over the maximum distance at which these cloud signs could be reliably observed, and how often navigators might have been fooled by false positives. Large stationary cloud formations that gathered over nothing but a particularly warm patch of ocean. The line between skilled observation and something closer to spiritual interpretation is a blurry one that scholars are still gently parsing through. Your eyes are starting to ache from the strain, searching for meaning in the nebulous forms. Kalani laughs. It is like learning the handwriting of a friend. At first, all the letters look the same. Then, you start to recognize their unique style. He points again. Look there. Do you see the slight greenish glow underneath the base of that distant cloud cluster? You squint. You're not sure if you see it or if you're imagining it. That is the Ite Lapa, he says, the lightning under the water. It is the sunlight reflecting off the shallow turquoise waters of a lagoon and onto the bottom of the clouds. It is the island's signature written in light. The concept is breathtaking. An island announcing its presence not by being seen, but by painting the underside of the clouds above it with the stolen color of its own lagoons. You will not see it clearly yet, Kalani assures you. Your eyes are not accustomed. It is a glimpse you will learn to catch from the corner of your eye. For now, trust that it is there. That green glow is our destination. It is the color of land. He turns from the sky, his lesson complete for now. The clouds do not lie. They are the most honest part of the sea. They show us what is hidden. Remember, the ocean speaks through waves and currents, but the islands whisper through the clouds. He takes a deep breath of the salt air, and soon, if the wind agrees, we will be close enough to smell their secrets on the breeze. The initial wonder of reading the sky begins to wear off, replaced by a dull, throbbing ache behind your eyes. Staring at endless blue and white, searching for meaning in wisps and puffs, is surprisingly exhausting. It feels like trying to solve a puzzle where the pieces are constantly changing shape. Kalani notices your fading focus. Your eyes are trying to see like a modern person. He says, not unkindly, they are looking for edges, for solid shapes. Out here, you must learn to see the Adelac air of edges. You must see the feelings of the sky. He points towards a particularly promising, fluffy cumulus cloud that has been sitting on the horizon for the better part of an hour. That one. What is it telling you? You squint. It's big and white. It looks like a sheep. Kalani chuckles. It does. But is it a sheep grazing on a hill or a sheep lost at sea? Look deeper. See how its base is not a sharp line, but a soft, hazy blur. That is the cloud drinking the moist air rising from the warm island reefs below. The island is feeding it. That is an Edie Island cloud. Pursue this is not going anywhere soon. This is the mainstream historical take, the identification of characteristic cloud formations, stationary cumulus clouds, especially those with flat, darker bases and cauliflower-like tops, were a primary signpost. They were the navigator's beacon, a fixed point in a moving seascape. Now for the strange and specific detail. Not all clouds above islands are fluffy and white. Kalani has you watch a different cloud, one with a much lower, grayer, and more uniform base. That one is heavier. It is full of the island's rain, but watch its underside very carefully near the edges. You stare until your vision blurs, and then you see it, faint, dark streaks trailing down from the gray base like delicate pencil strokes against the sky that seem to vanish before they reach the ocean. That is Tverga, and Icho, Itverga, Woodseas or Fernwoodad, using the modern term for precipitation that evaporates before hitting the ground. The rain is falling, but it is drinking itself back into the dry air before it can reach the sea. It is a sign that the land is still far away, but it is there. The island is sending out its tears, but they are not yet reaching us. He teaches you that these force rains, or Ted's phantom rains, were crucial for judging distance. A cloud with Virga meant the island was likely still beyond the horizon. A cloud with a base so dark and sharp, it almost looks like it's dripping, and from which you can see a solid gray curtain of rain connecting the cloud to the sea. A phenomenon called a rain shaft meant you were much closer. The island wasn't just whispering anymore, it was calling out loud. Naturally, meteorologists still debate the precise reliability of these signs. The presence and behavior of Virga depend on incredibly specific atmospheric conditions. Humidity levels at different altitudes, air temperature, sea temperature. Could a navigator truly use the presence or absence of these wispy streaks to accurately gauge distance? Or was it more of a general, qualitative guideline, one piece of a much larger puzzle? It's a question that lives in the quiet, technical corners of historical navigation studies. Your eyes are watering from the strain, the constant glare of the sun on the water, the relentless blue and white. It's all starting to blend into a dizzying haze. Kalani nods sympathetically. It is like learning a new language where every word is written in fog. Your head will hurt. You will see things that are not there. This is normal. He offers you a piece of dried ginger to chew on, a traditional remedy for nausea and fatigue. The trick is not to stare directly. Use the edges of your vision. The most important messages are often seen from the corner of your eye, where your spirit looks, not your brain. He has you practice by closing your eyes for a count of 10, then opening them and immediately pointing to the part of the sky that looks different, without thinking. The first few times you point at random. Then, on the fourth try, your arm swings almost of its own accord to a patch of sky to the north. A small innocuous cloud cluster looks slightly more solid than the others. Good, Kalani murmurs. You felt it. That is the beginning. Now, let us see if the sky agrees with your feeling. What color is it? You blink, shifting your focus from shape to hue. The cloud is brilliant white, but underneath, it's darker there, almost a little green. You say, unsure if you're imagining it. Kalani's smile is wide. Perhaps. Or perhaps you are beginning to learn the handwriting. Tomorrow we will learn the alphabet of color. The clouds do not just have shapes, they have shades. And each shade tells a different story about the water and the land beneath them. The ginger helps. The sharp, pungent taste cuts through the sea spray fatigue, and the headache begins to recede, then leaving behind a strange, hyper-aware clarity. Kalani was right. When you stop trying to de-force under your eyes to see, and instead just let the information wash over you, the sky begins to speak in a subtler language. And the primary dialect of that language, you are discovering, is color. Forget the shapes for now. Kalani instructs, his voice a calm murmur against the wind. Shapes can lie, they shift with the wind. But color comes from the truth of what is below. It is the ocean and the land reflecting their soul onto the canvas of the clouds. He points back to the stationary cloud you'd been studying, the one that looked like a sheep. You saw white. Good. White is the cloud itself. But look lower, at the very base, where it kisses the horizon. What do you see there? You narrow your eyes, filtering out the glare. And then you see it, a faint but undeniable tinge of greenish gray. It's not the bright green of a leaf. It's a soft, murky oceanic green. That is the two-waiting Adicolor, Kalani explains. It is the light passing over the shallow lagoons of an atoll and bouncing back up. The cloud is catching that light. It is the first hint. It says, I am here, but you must come closer. This is the core historical insight, the understanding of how light interacts with different marine environments and is reflected onto the cloud base. A navigator knew that a yellowish or brownish tint in the clouds could indicate a large, muddy river plume far out to sea, signaling the mouth of a great valley on a high island. A dazzling, brilliant white reflection, so bright it hurts to look at, could indicate sun glaring off the pure white sand of a shallow submerged reef, a dangerous but valuable sign. Now for the wonderfully obscure and specific detail. It wasn't just about the color itself, but about its e-texturity in the sky. Kalani has you watch the underside of a different lower cloud. See how the green there is not smooth? It looks shimmery, like someone scattered moving coins of light. You nod, seeing the faint flickering pattern. That is the cloud reflecting not just the still water of the lagoon, but the movement of the waves too over the reef. The light is dancing because the water is dancing. It tells us the reef is alive and healthy. A sick reef, a reef smothered by sand or broken by storms, does not make the light dance in the same way. You are literally being taught to read the health of an invisible ecosystem from the play of light on clouds miles away. Of course, atmospheric scientists are still debating the exact optical physics and practical visibility of these phenomena. The crack-to-green flash phenomenon is well documented at sunset, but could a navigator reliably discern these much subtler daytime color reflections against the vast, bright backdrop of the sky? Was this a consistently observable fact, or more of an art, a skill honed by a few exceptional individuals that was then enshrined in navigational lore? The line between measurable science and profound art is one that scholars are still gently teasing apart. Your new task is maddening. Kalani has you closing one eye and then the other, comparing the slight differences in how each eye perceives color and light on the horizon. Your eyes will see slightly different truths, he says. The trick is to find the truth that lies between them. It's an exercise in perceptual patience. You feel like you're trying to see a ghost, but then, for a single heart-stopping moment, you lock onto the distant cloud cluster to the north. With one eye, it looks gray. With the other, it holds a faint ethereal pink glow, like the inside of a seashell. When you open both eyes, the image merges into a cloud with a soft peach-colored underbelly. You see it, Kalani says, his voice full of genuine excitement. The peach color, that is the sun, low in the sky, filtering through the palm trees on a high island and throwing their color back up. It is the color of sunset on sand. It is a rare color to see. It means the island is not a flat atoll with lagoons. It is a high island with mountains and valleys. It has fresh water. It has people. The realization is astounding. You are not just navigating towards land. You are determining the topography out of that land from dozens of miles away, based on the faint, blush-colored light it casts upon the clouds. You are reading the personality of an island you cannot see. The colors are the most honest part of the journey, Kalani says, his own eyes fixed on the peach-colored glow. The waves can be confused by storms, the stars can be hidden, the birds can sometimes wander, but the light always tells the truth about what it has touched. Remember that. The sky is never just blue. It is a mirror. He takes a deep breath, and you notice his posture has changed. He seems more focused, more intent. The playful teacher is gone, replaced by the master navigator. The color tells us we are on the right path. Now we must listen to the wind to know how to walk it. The wind will tell us if it is feeling helpful or not. The focus on color and clouds has been so intense that you'd almost forgotten about the wind. It's been a constant presence, of course, a force that fills the sails and cools your skin. But now, under Kalani's new direction, you realize you've been ignoring the most intimate navigator of all. The wind is not one thing, Kalani says, holding up his hand, fingers spread. It is 1,000 things. It has a personality. It has moods. It has a history. And it is always talking to your skin. He has you close your eyes and simply feel the breeze on your face, your arms, the back of your neck. At first, it just feels like wind. But as you focus, nuances emerge. You feel how the temperature of the air changes slightly as a cooler puff whispers past, followed by a warmer, heavier one. You feel how some gusts are dry, almost gritty with fine sea salt, while others carry a faint, almost imperceptible dampness. Your skin is your first compass, Kalani murmurs. A sudden chill on your left cheek might mean a weather shift from the south. A warm, damp gust means it has passed over rain, maybe a squall ahead. A dry, steady wind is a faithful friend from the east. This is the mainstream knowledge, the use of the prevailing trade winds. Polynesian navigators had a deep understanding of seasonal wind patterns, the great atmospheric conveyor belts of the Pacific that could carry them reliably between archipelagos. Now for the strange and intimate detail. It wasn't just about feeling the wind on your exposed skin. Kalani has you turn around and stand with your back to the wind. Feel it through your clothing, he instructs. How does the dampness of your tapa cloth shirt feel different when the wind is humid versus when it is dry? How does the wind press the cloth against your skin? A steady wind presses evenly. A shifting gusty wind, the kind that might be confused by a distant island, presses in fits and starts. You feel ridiculous, standing there analyzing the feel of your shirt on your back, but then you sense it, a slight, fluttery inconsistency in the pressure. It's not a steady push, it's a series of gentle, insistent taps. Good, Kalani says, though you've said nothing. You feel its uncertainty. The wind is wondering what is ahead, just like we are. He then teaches you the most subtle trick, reading the wind's scent. This goes beyond the smell of salt. A faint smell of mud, of earth, is the most precious smell in the world out here, he says, inhaling deeply. It means the wind has crossed over land, even an unseen atoll, and carried the scent of its soil. A smell of flowers, even fainter, is a gift from the gods themselves. A smell of wood smoke, he smiles a wide, triumphant smile, means we are almost home. You sniff the air obsessively, but all you smell is the clean, sterile scent of the deep ocean. Kalani laughs. Your city nose is not yet tuned. It will come. For now, just know that the wind can carry the breath of a forest from 100 miles away. Naturally, there is academic debate about this. Skeptical historians question the range at which human senses could reliably detect these olfactory signals over the powerful, overriding scent of the sea. Was the scent of land Nebumun Bilov, again to Borchaishin, Yonand are a psychological one, a hope perceived by desperate or highly trained minds. The debate is a quiet one, but it underscores the incredible refinement of the navigator's art. Your lesson becomes a meditation in sensation. You stand for what feels like hours, eyes closed, cataloging the minute changes on your skin and in your nostrils. You begin to map the wind not as a single force, but as a tapestry of different threads. A cool, dry thread from the east, a warm, moist thread weaving in from the north, a sporadic, erratic thread that seems to come from nowhere. You are no longer just on the ocean, you are inside the weather itself. Kalani finally breaks your trance. The wind tells us more than direction, he says, his voice low. It tells us what it has traveled over. Our steady friend from the east has been over nothing but open ocean for 1,000 leagues. It is clean and simple, but this new thread, this hesitant, warm, damp puff from the north, bat, he turns his face to catch it full on. It is confused. It has stumbled over something it did not expect. It has touched land. It is bringing us a message. He opens his eyes and looks at you, and you see the absolute certainty in them. The wind has met the island. It is telling us the story of their meeting. And now, he says, walking to the side of the canoe and looking down into the deep, dark blue water, we must ask the ocean itself for the final directions. The currents know the deepest paths home. Kalani's shift in focus is immediate and total. The wind is forgotten. The clouds are still watched, but now from the periphery, his entire being seems to pour itself into gazing down at the water flowing past the hulls. It's a darker, deeper blue here, a sign of profound depth. The wind is a guide for the surface, he says, not taking his eyes off the water. But the ocean has layers, like an onion, and each layer has its own mind, its own currents, its own ancient paths. They are the underwater rivers that never see the sun. He motions for you to come closer to the rail. Do not just look at the water. Look into a dure. You lean over, the dark blue swallowing your gaze. At first, you see nothing but your own faint reflection superimposed over the abyss. Then, as your eyes adjust, you begin to see movement within the movement. Flecks of seaweed, tiny organisms, bits of something, are not just drifting aimlessly. They are moving with a subtle, consistent purpose slightly askew from the direction the wind is pushing the surface water. See? Kalani whispers. The skin of the ocean is moved by the wind's breath, but its muscles, its deep muscles, are moved by something else, something older and colder. This is the mainstream historical point. Polynesian navigators possessed an incredible empirical understanding of ocean currents. They knew the great conveyor belts of the Pacific, the equatorial current, the countercurrent, the easterly flows, and used them as highways, just as we use interstates. Now for the deeply weird and physical detail. To understand these currents, they didn't just look. They immersed it themselves. Kalani produces a long, hollowed-out gourd tied to a long cord. He fills it with a heavy, dark nut to weight it, and then lowers it over the side, down, 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 until the cord goes slack. The surface current is one direction, he says. At 20 arm lengths down, it is another. The canoe on the surface is being pulled one way, while the gourd deep below is being pulled another. Feel it. He hands you the cord, and you can feel it. A faint, persistent tug, a tension in the line that is different from the motion of the waves. It's like feeling the pulse of a leviathan far below. You are physically holding the deep current in your hands. He then has you perform the most intimate test. He dips a calabash into the water and brings up a sample from the surface. You taste it. Warm, salty. Then he lowers a different gourd, one with a valve that closes at a certain depth and brings up water from the deep. He hands it to you. Taste. The water is shockingly cold. making your teeth ache, and it tastes different, sharper, denser, almost metallic. The deep water is a different ocean, Kalani states. It has traveled from the cold places of the world. It has different fish, different tastes. A current from the south will feel different on your tongue than a current from the north. You must learn the taste of the directions. You are, quite literally, tasting the geography of the ocean. Unsurprisingly, modern oceanographers are still debating the precision of this method. While major current patterns are well known, the idea that a navigator could discern subtle directional changes by the taste and temperature of water sampled from a moving canoe, and do so reliably enough to navigate thousands of miles, pushes the limits of what seems plausible. Was this a highly refined skill, or was it a ritualized practice that worked in tandem with other, more reliable methods? The debate is a testament to the astounding complexity of this knowledge system. Your arms grow tired from holding the line, feeling the deep current's insistent pull. It's a constant, subtle force, a reminder that most of the ocean's power is hidden from view. Kalani takes the line back, coiling it with practiced ease. The deep currents are the most patient guides, he says. They do not change with the weather. They do not get angry like the wind. They are the oldest paths in the world. They remember the ways to the islands when the stars are hidden and the clouds are lost. He points to a faint, almost invisible line of froth and debris on the water's surface, a seam where two currents meet. That is a path. Follow that line, and it will take you where the current wants to go. Our job is not to fight the ocean, but to listen to where it wishes to take us. To do that, he says, tapping his temple, you must hold all of these paths in here. You must build a map that is not drawn on bark, but woven from memories, stories, and the feel of the water on your skin. The feeling of the deep current's pull lingers in your hands, a phantom tension in your palms. You look at Kalani, expecting him to produce another tool, another physical test. Instead, he simply taps his own temple with a weathered finger. The final map, he says, his voice soft but intense, is not out there. It is in here. Everything we have done, the stars, the waves, the birds, the clouds, the wind, the currents, it is all just information. Raw, beautiful, chaotic information. The true art is weaving it all together into a story that lives inside your mind. He closes his eyes. My teacher called it the whispering path. It is not a line you can see. It is a feeling, a knowing. He begins to hum, a low, rhythmic chant that seems to match the rise and fall of the swells. The tune is simple, ancient. This is a Kapake Apa, Imizabuldrayan. He says, opening his eyes, a sailing chant. It is not just a song. It is a memory palace built from melody. Each verse names a star, a current, a bird, a cloud, a sequence. But you follow the rising of the Pleiades until the frigate bird flies home at dusk. Taste the water for the cold stream from the south. Look for the cloud that does not move. The chant holds the entire route, turn by turn, sign by sign. We do not navigate by memorizing facts. We navigate by remembering a story. This is the mainstream historical understanding, the use of oral tradition, chants, stories, genealogies, as a sophisticated method of storing and transmitting vast amounts of navigational data across generations without a written language. Now for the fascinatingly abstract detail. This mental map wasn't static. It was a living, constantly updated model. Kalani explains that a navigator must always know his dite canals, his conceptual position. Imagine you are sailing from one island to another, he says, drawing an invisible line in the air. You do not think of yourself as moving along that line. Instead, you imagine a third reference island, off to the side, As you sail, you track your progress by how the angle to that reference island changes against the stars. The reference island is the stationary pin around which your journey turns in your mind. You are boggled by the concept. You're not just holding a map, you're performing real-time spherical trigonometry in your head, using a fictional island as a fixed point. It's a breathtakingly elegant cognitive tool. He then reveals the most personal part of the process, the constant silent dialogue. You must always be talking to the canoe, he murmurs, placing a hand on the rail as if it were the neck of a beloved horse. You feel its speed through the water. You feel how the current pushes it sideways. You adjust the story in your mind. We are moving faster than the chant says, you tell yourself. The current is helping us. The island will appear sooner. Or the wind is pushing us north of the path we must correct. The map in your mind is always moving, always breathing. You are the captain, the navigator, and the computer, all in one. Of course, cognitive scientists and anthropologists are still debating the precise neurological mechanisms behind this feat. How does the human brain maintain such a complex, multi-sensory, and dynamic mental model for weeks on end, under conditions of extreme fatigue and stress? Is it a skill that could be taught to anyone with enough training, or did it require a specific innate cognitive architecture that was selected for in these pioneering seafaring cultures? It's a quiet debate that speaks to the very limits of human memory and spatial awareness. Your head spins trying to hold on to the fragments, the taste of cold water, the image of a stationary cloud, the sound of the chant, the conceptual reference island. It feels like trying to hold water in your hands. Kalani sees your struggle and smiles. It feels like too much. Yes, that is because you are trying to hold each piece separately. Do not hold the pieces. Listen to the song they sing together. He resumes his low chant, and this time you try not to analyze the words, but to feel the journey within them. The rise and fall of the melody mimics the waves. The names of the stars are like points of light in the dark. It starts to feel less like memorization and more like absorption. This is the greatest secret, Kalani says, his chant fading away. The journey is not to the island. The journey is the song, and the song is already inside you, waiting to be remembered. You do not find the island. The island calls the song out of you. He stands up, his posture shifting from teacher to commander. Now, it is time to stop practicing. It is time to sail the song for real. We will take everything, the stars, the waves, the birds, the clouds, the wind, the currents, and the chant, and we will weave them into a single story. Our story. The story of a voyage from here to there. He gestures to the empty horizon. We will simulate the journey to Hawaii. You will not just learn the art, you will live inside it. Kalani's demeanor shifts from the contemplative teacher to something harder but more focused. The gentle lessons are over. Now, we sail the song, he says, his voice losing its melodic quality and taking on the flat, pragmatic tone of a mission commander. We are leaving Raiatea. Our prow points to the north-northeast. Our destination is a place the chants call Et Huai Hudi. The song is Erdai, Hirai Sin Habala meters long. You will not sleep properly. You will be cold at night and burned by day. You will be hungry, thirsty, and you will learn the true meaning of boredom, punctuated by moments of pure terror. This is what it is to be a wayfinder. Welcome. The first few days are a blur of relentless routine and sensory overload. You are no longer learning skills in isolation. You are drowning in their simultaneous application. Under the blazing sun, you are staring at the clouds until your eyes water, trying to discern the faintest hint of a greenish reflection, while also trying to keep one ear tuned to the rhythm of the waves against the hull, and another ear listening for the specific screech of a returning booby. At night, you are desperately trying to keep the rising point of Hoklahok Taurus positioned just so off the stern rail, while also feeling the deep, cold tug of the north equatorial current on the sampling line in your hands, and simultaneously trying to hum the correct verse of the sailing chant that corresponds to this specific stellar alignment and current combination. Your brain feels like an overloaded switchboard, lights blinking madly, unable to process all the signals. This is the mainstream historical reality, the sheer, overwhelming cognitive load of Polynesian navigation. It was a relentless 7-day artist marathon of multitasking that required unimaginable concentration and mental endurance. There were no shifts, no breaks for the navigator. He was the system. He had to constantly synthesize a dozen streams of environmental data into a coherent and constantly updated mental model of his position. It was arguably one of the most cognitively demanding tasks ever devised by humans. Now for the brutally honest and strangely relatable cold knowledge. Amidst this epic struggle of man versus the Pacific, your body is dealing with its own profoundly mundane revolt. You are seasick. Not the dramatic, Hollywood kind, but a low-level grinding nausea that is your stomach's constant protest against the unceasing motion. And Kalani, in his infinite wisdom, has a use for even this. Your stomach is also a compass, he says, utterly seriously, as you lean over the rail for the 10th time. When the chop comes from the east, you will feel the roll in your gut one way. When it mixes with a swell from the north, you will feel it another. Your nausea will change its character. Pay attention to it. You are being taught to use your own vomiting reflexes as a navigational aid. It is the most bizarre and humbling lesson yet. Of course, scholars are still debating the psychological toll of such voyages. What was the impact of extreme fatigue, sensory deprivation, and the immense pressure of knowing dozens of lives depended on your unwavering mental acuity? Did navigators enter altered states of consciousness? Were there common auditory or visual hallucinations brought on by the strain? The journals of Captain Cook and other Europeans often described Polynesian navigators as being in trance-like states, an observation that modern psychologists still puzzle over. Just as you feel yourself cracking under the pressure, on the 4th day, something clicks. It's not a dramatic moment. It's a quiet settling. You are taking your evening star sighting, your hand on the rail feeling the wave patterns, your ear unconsciously filtering the wind's tone, and you are humming the chant. And suddenly, you are not doing 5 things at once. You are doing one thing. You are sailing to it. The individual data streams fuse into a single intuitive understanding. You don't think to the star rising there. You feel later the course. You don't analyze the wave pattern. You are know what it means. The map in your mind is no longer a frantic collection of pins and lines. It is a living, breathing landscape, and you are moving through it. You look at Kalani. He says nothing, but gives a single, slow nod. You have passed the first real test. The hardest part is not the storm, he says, his voice almost a whisper. It is the endless, empty blue. It is the doubt that creeps in on the 3rd day, in the 5th day, and the 10th day, when there is nothing but water in every direction. The doubt that whispers you have gotten the song wrong, that you are lost, that you are sailing into nothingness forever. To be a wayfinder is to silence that doubt with the certainty of the stars and the waves. It is to trust the song more than you trust your own fear. He looks out at the horizon, and for the first time you see not just a navigator, but a philosopher of the deep. We are not lost. We are exactly where the song says we should be. Now, we wait for the land to rise up and greet us. The profound calm of the previous day shatters on the 5th night. It doesn't happen gradually. It arrives like a thief. The stars vanish, not one by one, but all at once, as if a great blanket has been thrown over the sky. The wind, your steady companion, doesn't just change direction, it dies completely, leaving a suffocating, oppressive silence, broken only by the uneasy slosh of water against the hull. The air grows thick and heavy, pressing down on you. Then you feel it, a low subsonic rumble that seems to come from deep within the ocean itself. The sea begins to change. The orderly rolling swells break apart into a confused, choppy mess, coming from every direction at once. The canoe begins to buck and twist unnervingly. Pulili, Kea, Estai, his voice, grim. The deep darkness, the storm is upon you. Rain arrives not in drops but in solid sheets of water, horizontally driven by a wind that has now returned with a screaming vengeance. Your world contracts to the few feet of deck you can see in the flashes of lightning that tear the sky apart. The carefully woven mental map in your mind, the star compass, the current lines, the cloud shapes is utterly obliterated. The song in your head is drowned out by the roar of the elements. You are blind, deaf, and utterly, terrifyingly disoriented. This is the nightmare scenario. In the midst of the chaos, your modern mind screams for a solution. A GPS, a radio, a satellite phone, anything. And in a moment of pure desperate instinct, your hand flies to the waterproof pouch on your belt, like a pouch that shouldn't be there, containing a device that doesn't belong in this time. Your fingers close around the cold, hard rectangle of a GPS unit. You fumble with it, your fingers numb and shaking, and the screen flares to life, a tiny, defiant square of digital order in the analog chaos. A blinking icon shows your exact position, a route, a way out. This is the core conflict, the clash between ancient empirical knowledge and modern technological certainty. History shows that these storms were the great filters of Polynesian expansion, the events that likely claimed countless canoes and lives. Navigating through them relied on a deeply internalized, almost spiritual feel for the sea, a sense that often blurred the line between skill and intuition. Now for the cold, hard detail of the crisis. You thrust the glowing screen toward Kalani, a lifeline. He glances at it, and in a flash of lightning, you see not relief, but a profound sadness on his face. He doesn't yell over the wind. He simply leans close, his mouth near your ear, and says, "And when its spirit dies," he points at the device, "when the magic inside it fades, what then? Will your knowledge fade with it?" He places his hand back on the rail, his eyes closing, his body swaying with the violent pitch of the canoe. "I do not need to see the stars to feel them. I do not need a machine to tell me the ocean is angry. I can feel it in the way the waves are fighting each other. This is not a time for seeing. This is a time for feeling. Put the ghost away. Listen to the real world. It's a devastating moment. He is refusing the sure thing. He is choosing to trust his ancestral knowledge over irrefutable digital data, and in doing so, he is trusting EGUR to do the same. Scholars and modern navigators passionately debate this very scenario. In the revival of Polynesian wayfinding today, some crews often carry emergency GPS devices, sealed and strictly for life or death situations. Is using them a betrayal of the tradition, or a prudent marriage of old and new? Is Kalani's refusal romantic folly, or the ultimate expression of faith in his art? There is no easy answer, and the debate reflects a larger struggle between cultural purity and practical safety. Shamed, you switch off the device. The little screen dies, plunging you back into the terrifying darkness. For a moment, you are more lost than before. But then you follow Kalani's lead. You stop trying to see. You close your eyes. You plant your feet wide and you feel the way. The canoe is being thrown about. You feel the dominant pattern emerging beneath the chaos. A powerful, deep directional surge that hasn't been completely erased by the surface storm. You feel the rain on your face, and you realize the wind, though fierce, has a new, slightly warmer quality. It has shifted. Kalani was right. You can feel it. He begins to shout commands to the crew, not to change course toward a digital waypoint, but to align the canoe with this deeper, more powerful rhythm, to ride out the storm in harmony with the ocean's true motion and not against it. You are not navigating Edo era place anymore. You are navigating era through Erin experience. The goal is no longer Hawaii. The goal is survival, and the method is not a map, but a profound physical empathy with the sea. The storm becomes a brutal, terrifying teacher. It strips away everything non-essential. It forces you to trust not a machine, but your own senses and the knowledge etched into your bones by the last 11 days. You are no longer using the art. You dare, errs, the art. And as the first gray light of dawn begins to leak into the world, the storm begins to exhaust itself, leaving behind a bruised sky and a sea that is slowly remembering its manners. You are still afloat. You are still on the path. The song, it turns out, has a verse for storms too. The dawn after the storm is the softest you have ever seen. The air is washed clean, holding a crystalline quality that makes every detail impossibly sharp. The sea is not calm, but it is orderly again, breathing in long, deep, forgiving swells, as if apologizing for its rage. The crew moves with a quiet, weary reverence, checking lashings, bailing out the last of the rainwater, their laughter subdued but genuine. You feel different. The terror of the storm has been burned away, replaced by a profound, unshakable confidence. You didn't just survive, you had understood. You feel the deep currents pull again, a familiar, reassuring tug. You taste the wind and it's clean, with a new, faint scent you can't quite identify. Kalani sniffs the air, a slow, deep draw through his nostrils. His eyes are fixed on the horizon, not with searching intensity, but with a quiet expectation. Then you see it, or rather, you see a thumb hoed, then sten. At first, it's just a smudge on the horizon, a tiny dark irregularity against the perfect blue seam of sky and water. Then another appears nearby. Not clouds. These are too solid, too geometric. They are sails, but they are all wrong. They are vast, square, rigid things, not the graceful, flexible, pandanus mats of your canoe. They look like floating fortresses. As they draw closer, the scale becomes apparent. The vessel is monstrous, a leviathan of wood and rope that dwarfs your wakalua. The sounds carry across the water, the shouts of men in a harsh, unfamiliar language, the clatter of hardware, the groan of timbers. A strange, acrid smell washes over you. The smell of smoke, but not from a cook fire. It's a bitter, industrial smell. It's the smell of the future, and it smells wrong. This is the mainstream historical moment, the first contact between Polynesian wayfinders and European explorers. It was a meeting of two worlds built on entirely different principles of knowledge. One was based on deep empirical intimacy with the natural world, the other on charts, clocks, and the mechanical conquest of space. A smaller boat is lowered from the giant ship and rows toward you. The men who clamber onto your deck are pale, their faces obscured by hair, their bodies encased in stiff, hot-looking clothing. They carry metal and fire sticks. Their leader, a man with a face reddened by the sun, unfolds a piece of parchment, a map. He points to it, then points to the empty ocean around you, jabbering excitedly. He is hopelessly, utterly lost. He is asking a viewer for directions. Kalani listens patiently, then simply points a finger, indicating a course almost directly behind the great ship. The man's eyes widen in disbelief. How could this savage with no instruments, no maps, possibly know? He scoffs, consults his compass and sextant again, and argues. Kalani just smiles and repeats the gesture. The certainty in his eyes is absolute. The European captain, confused and frustrated, finally retreats, his trust in his machines overriding the quiet assurance of the man who could taste the wind. Now for the poignant cold knowledge detail of this cultural collision. As the Europeans leave, one of them, a quieter man with curious eyes, lingers for a moment. He doesn't look at the canoe or the sails. He looks at Kalani's face. He points to the sky, then to his own eyes, and makes a questioning gesture. He is asking, "How?" Kalani, in response, simply points to his own eyes, then to his heart, then sweeps his hand across the entire horizon. The message is clear: "In my eyes see not with my eyes, but with my whole being." The European nods slowly, a flicker of understanding crossing his face before he is called back to his boat. It is a tiny fleeting moment of connection amidst a tidal wave of miscomprehension. Historians are still fiercely debating the full impact of these early contacts. While the popular narrative often jumps to the diseases and guns that would later decimate populations, the first and most profound violence was often intellectual and spiritual. European logs are filled with accounts of Polynesian navigational prowess that they witnessed but refused to believe, attributing it to luck, intuition, or even devilry. This dismissal of a sophisticated science because it didn't match their own paradigm was perhaps the first step in the process of colonization, the invalidation of a people's knowledge. In the days and weeks that follow, more ships appear. Your journey to Hawaii becomes a journey through a changing world. The signs you've learned to trust begin to get polluted. The wind sometimes carries that strange, bitter smoke, masking the scent of land. The birds are sometimes startled by the loud foreign noises. The feeling is no longer one of pristine discovery, but of being slowly, inexorably encircled. The song in your mind feels quieter, as if the new sounds are drowning it out. Kalani grows withdrawn. He still navigates with flawless skill, but the light in his eyes has dimmed. One evening he says to you, his voice heavy with a premonitory grief, "They bring new gods, gods of metal and paper. Their gods tell them that the ocean is something to be crossed, not something to be known. They do not listen to the waves. They only tell the waves to be silent." He looks at the sacred calabash he uses to taste the deep water. Our way is written in water and wind. Theirs is written in ink. Ink can be spilled. Wind and water, he trails off. But the implication is clear. He fears their way is more fragile. He is watching a world built on memory begin to be dismantled by record keeping. The clouds still point the way, the stars still rise, but a shadow has fallen across the whispering path. The greatest threat is not being lost at sea. It is the world forgetting how to find its way home. A silence falls over the canoe in the wake of the European ships, a silence deeper and more profound than the quiet after the storm. It's the silence of a world that has suddenly, irrevocably shrunk. The vast, empty ocean you've learned to read as a living map now feels watched, encroached upon. Kalani sits for a long time, staring at the wake of the great ship as it disappears over the horizon, his face a mask of troubled thought. The absolute certainty that has been your guide for weeks seems to have flickered. The song feels distant. Days turn into a week. The signs are still there. The birds, the clouds, the currents, but a melancholy hangs over the voyage. The goal no longer feels like a discovery. It feels like a retreat. Then, one evening, as you practice your star sights, Kalani speaks, his voice raspy from disuse. They think their way is stronger because it is written down. He says, not looking at you. They believe paper does not forget. But paper burns. It rots. It can be lost. He finally turns to you, and there's a new fire in his eyes, not of navigation, but of defiance. Our way is written here. He taps his head. And here, He places a hand over his heart, and in the chants we sing to our children. The only way it dies is if we stop singing, if we stop teaching, if we look at their paper and believe it is better than our own knowing. This is the mainstream historical narrative, the tragic decline of traditional Polynesian navigation in the face of European colonization. With the arrival of Western ships, tools, and religions, the ancient knowledge was systematically devalued, suppressed, and ultimately forgotten across much of the Pacific. The great voyaging canoes were left to rot on shore. The sacred chants were no longer sung. The star compasses faded from memory. Within a few generations, the very idea of navigating millions of square miles of ocean without instruments seemed like a myth, a faded legend. Now for the small to almost forgotten detail of how the light was kept alive. It wasn't kept alive in great schools or libraries. It was kept in fragments, hidden away like precious jewels. My great-uncle, Kalani says, his voice dropping to a whisper, as if sharing a dangerous secret. He was a Dukumu A teacher. When the missionaries forbade the old chants, he did not argue. He nodded and smiled. But at night, he would take the children fishing in the lagoon. And there, under the stars, with the water lapping at the outrigger, he would sing them the old sailing chants, but he would call them fishing songs. He would point out the stars and call them the eyes of the fish gods. He hid the knowledge in plain sight, inside a story they would not think to forbid. The art didn't vanish. It went underground, its pieces scattered, its practice reduced to whispers and metaphors, a secret language spoken only by the oldest generations, waiting for a time when the world might be ready to hear it again. Of course, historians and cultural anthropologists are still fiercely debating this period. The narrative of total loss is being revised. How much knowledge was truly forgotten, and how much was simply concealed from Western eyes? Were there isolated pockets where the old ways continued uninterrupted? The discovery of these hidden knowledge keepers in the Ardsi's century suggests the ember never fully went out. It was just buried deep beneath the ash of colonialism, waiting for a breath to bring it back to life. Kalani's mood shifts from defiance to a determined, almost urgent purpose. This cannot be the end of the song, he says, his gaze sweeping over the crew, over you. You must remember all of it, not just the stars and the waves. Remember the feel of the storm. Remember the taste of the deep water. Remember the smell of the foreign ship. Remember the sadness. You must carry it all back. You must become a new kind of wayfinder. You will not just navigate between islands. You will navigate between worlds. You will be a bridge between the past they are trying to erase and a future they cannot yet imagine. The weight of his words settles on you, heavier than any storm. This is no longer just a training voyage. It is an act of cultural preservation. Every bird sighting, every cloud reading, every note of the chant is now a rebellious act, a stand against oblivion. You practice with a new ferocity, not just for yourself, but for the uncle singing forbidden chants in a lagoon, for all the teachers who had to hide their knowledge. You are no longer just learning to navigate. You are learning to remember for those who have forgotten. The next morning, the signs begin to scream at you. The bird traffic is constant and purposeful. The cloud on the horizon is no longer a faint smudge. It is a towering permanent fixture, but its underside holding a deep, undeniable greenish-gray hue. The smell in the air is unmistakable. Wet earth, vegetation, wood smoke. The deep current's pull has changed, gentled, as if it's releasing you into warmer, shallower waters. The song in your head is no longer a memory. It is a current itself, pulling you forward. Kalani doesn't need to say it. You both feel it. The simulation is over. You have arrived. The knowledge has carried you home. But the journey is not over. In many ways, the hardest part, The remembering and the retelling is just beginning. The canoe seems to sigh with relief since its journey done, but yours is forever changed. The green glow beneath the clouds isn't a hint anymore, it's a fact. The smell of earth and wood smoke isn't a fleeting whisper, it's a constant rich perfume in the air. The number of birds has multiplied into a chaotic, screaming cloud of life. And then on a morning that feels no different from any other, you see it. Not a smudge, not a hint, but a line, a dark, solid, jagged line, breaking the perfect circle of the horizon. It doesn't look real. It looks like a painting, a backdrop someone has hung behind the ocean. Hawaii. There is no shouting, no dramatic celebration. The crew simply stops what they are doing. They stand in silence, watching the land grow from a line into a shape, from a shape into a mountain, from a mountain into a world. The only sound is the wind in the sails and the water against the hull, the same sounds that have been your companions for weeks, but now they sound different. They sound like a song reaching its final, perfect note. You feel a pressure in your chest that you realize is the absence of the immense, unconscious tension you have been carrying. You have arrived. The song was true. Kalani stands beside you, his work complete. He doesn't look triumphant. He looks peaceful. You see, he says softly, not taking his eyes off the approaching island. The island was always there. We were the ones who were moving. The song did not create the island. The island created the song. We just had to remember the tune. This is the mainstream historical culmination, the successful completion of a long-distance voyage using solely traditional methods, a testament to the breathtaking accuracy of Polynesian navigational science. It was a feat of memory, observation, and sheer human will. Now for the quiet personal detail that truly defines arrival. As the canoe glides into the lee of the island, the deep ocean swell vanishes, replaced by a lighter, playful chop. The sound of the waves changes completely. Instead of the deep roar of the open Pacific, you hear the specific, gentle crash of waves on a reef and the lap of water on a black sand beach. And then, a new sound carries across the water. The distinct rustling whisper of thousands of coconut palm fronds dancing in the wind. It is the sound of land. It is the sound of life. You realize you haven't heard a sound that didn't come from the ocean or your own crew in over a month. The rustling of the palms is the most beautiful music you have ever heard. Of course, modern historians still gently debate the emotional and psychological impact of these landfalls. After weeks at sea, in a state of hyper-focused sensory deprivation, what was it like to finally smell earth, to see other people, to eat fresh food? European accounts describe Polynesian navigators as often being calm and subdued upon arrival, their celebration internalized. The real reward was not the destination, but the validation of the knowledge itself. The proof that the whispers of the waves and the messages in the clouds were real. You help lower the sails as the canoe is guided skillfully through a break in the reef into a tranquil, turquoise lagoon. The water is so clear you can see individual fish darting around the coral heads below. People are streaming onto the beach, calling out greetings. The journey is over, but as you step onto the sand, your legs buckle beneath you. They are used to the constant motion of the sea, and the absolute stillness of the land feels wrong, unnerving. The world sways. You have to brace yourself against the hull of the canoe. You have your sea legs, but you have lost your land legs. It is the final, physical proof of your transformation. Your body, like your mind, is no longer entirely of this shore-bound world. You have become a creature of the pathway between worlds. You look back at the endless blue from which you came, and you understand. You will never look at the ocean or the sky the same way again. You have learned the grammar of the sea and the poetry of the clouds. You are, and always will be, a wayfinder. The voyage may be over, but the journey never ends. The song is now yours to carry, to remember, and one day to teach. The gentle lap of water against the hull is fading now, softening into a memory, a rhythm felt more in your soul than in your ears. The stars we followed, those distant, steady friends, dim to mere pinpricks behind your closed eyelids. The taste of the deep, cold current is just a ghost on your tongue, a lingering hint of a vast, ancient world beneath the waves. The feel of the wind, with all its secret messages of distant lands, is now nothing more than the soft sigh of your own breath, the gentle rise and fall of your chest as you drift. That great empty blue expanse, once so terrifying in its scale, now feels like a comforting blanket, a soft, dark embrace holding you. You are no longer sailing Eden at the ocean, but floating at within or eat, cradled in the endless quiet dark. The whispered chants are blending with the hum of your own thoughts, slow press, slowing until they are just a soothing melody without words, a lullaby sung by the memory of the sea itself. There is no more need to navigate, no more need to watch or listen or feel for signs. The journey is complete. The island has been found. All the tension, the focus, the sheer effort of holding that intricate, beautiful map in your mind, it can all be let go now. Release it. Let the stars drift from their precise houses. Let the cloud shapes soften into meaningless, fluffy dreams. Let the currents carry you wherever they wish, because you are safe, you are still, you are home. The canoe is moored, the sails are furled, the knowledge is stored away, not lost, but resting, ready for another day. For now there is only the deep, warm dark, and the sound of your own heart, a steady, reliable drumbeat in the quiet night. It's the only rhythm you need to follow now, deeper and deeper down into the softest and most peaceful of sleeps, where the ocean meets the sky and all is calm.